Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, John. It's a real pleasure and honor for me to be here today and to be the first speaker of your very rich program. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm very pleased to start the day in stating what we all know is that as we approach the end of this year, it is really tempting to look back on the considerable progress towards new nuclear build. But a huge task lies ahead. We have not yet taken our final investment decision for Hinkley Point C. And I can assure you that we have not lost a single day since the 21st of October, when we announced the key contract terms and partners in doing what needs to be done to take us closer to our final investment decision. 2013 will only be a landmark year if our goal for 2014, the final investment decision, comes off. Getting to this point has taken many, many years of effort. We should all remember what it has taken over each of the last 10 years to get us to this point, because we still face the challenges of ensuring an affordable, secure, and low-carbon energy mix. 10 years ago, in 2003, we saw what some called the nail in the coffin for new nuclear. Over 5 years, from 2003, we had to listen, to engage, and to persuade. And together, we moved nuclear from being an unattractive option to one where we had the nuclear white paper in 2008. And John will remember this period very well. The challenge shifted from that point on to create a regulatory framework which would reform the electricity market to allow low-carbon projects like new nuclear build to come forward. In parallel, we have been committed to the project over these years, and the government, as with us, had to show increasing commitment that we would be ready when the time comes. Despite changes in the economy and in government, the consensus for new nuclear in the United Kingdom has continued and grown. On the day of our announcement in October, Labour's support was very visible, in spite of outstanding questions about other aspects of energy policy. This progress over the last decade has only been possible through partnerships. So today, I will tell you about some of the final hurdles that must be crossed and how we can only overcome these through successful partnerships. As John said, there is a global audience watching the UK's steps towards new nuclear power. Through building partnership between the public and private sectors, nuclear is now part of the long-term solution, rebuilding the UK's industrial stamina. Because of partnerships, not just with this government, but with previous government and into the future. For the first time ever, all three main political parties are in favor of new nuclear build. A key reason that we have reached this stage is precisely this political consensus that the energy market needed to change. The contract for difference for Hinkley Point C is evidence that electricity market reform works. The carbon price floor is also a vital tool to encourage low carbon investment. It maintains the principle that you have to pay for what something costs. The polluters have to pay for what is emitted. It ensures the policy is consistent with long-term objectives. First and foremost, to achieve these objectives, the energy bill must complete its passage through Parliament. I'm very confident it will be the case, and Michael Fallon told me that he will invite me when it will be announced that the royal assent has been given. La Reine le veut. The bill is the vital legislative foundation on which low-carbon investment can be made. Another critical aspect is ensuring that Hinkley Point secures an infrastructure guarantee from the Treasury. The government has confirmed the project eligibility under the UK guarantee scheme, which is another very strong demonstration of its commitments to new nuclear build. Infrastructure UK is now conducting intensive due diligence on the project with the expectation that Treasury guaranteed debt will finance 65% of expected total costs prior to operations. And we are, after having agreed on the head of terms, also continuing to work with UK government to agree the full investment contract. And we are confident that this full final investment contract can be agreed soon. A further challenge lies in Brussels. Before we proceed, the European Commission must grant the project state aid approval. We believe that there is a robust case. Because, for instance, if we refer to the criteria for state aid compatibility, it is clear that there has been a market failure and that the electricity market reform package is the appropriate step to address this market failure. But it is not just about making the case to policymakers. We have to prove to the public that we have their best interests at heart, that we are their partners. The investment contract for Hinkley Point C will offer our customers in this country, a fair deal while protecting them from volatile energy prices for years and years and years to come. The contract will be fair for customers, will be fair for investors, because only an agreement which is fair will be sustainable. So yes, we have been offering short-term solutions to the pressures which customers are facing on their bills now. And recently, we have limited our price rises and held back the full impact of rising costs. And we have led the industry in challenging others to do the same. And the result of this proposal has been a good result for the customers, and again, through a good partnership between the industry and the government. In the long term, Hinkley Point C is also part of the solution to the pressures customers are facing on their bills. Because nuclear is the long-term consistent guarantee that the UK will have the affordable, low-carbon electricity it needs. Building trust is at the heart of any partnership. And we know that we, the energy companies, are under scrutiny like never before. Just as we must engender the trust of our customers, we must engender trust in the way that we run our nuclear operations, because they are the two sides of the same coin. We have worked together with the regulator to learn the lessons and apply all his recommendations after the events in Fukushima. And next week, I shall be opening Sizewell's Emergency Response Center, a brand new response center which has been designed, built, and will be available from next week on the back of the recommendations of the Chief Inspector report after the Fukushima events. It proves that we have done what we said we will do, and that we can be trusted to operate our existing nuclear stations safely. We have also built partnerships with our local communities. I'm pleased to have our local MP with us today, who can see the jobs, the skills, the economic and social benefits with new nuclear in the next years and decades. It includes 25,000 employment opportunities. And we are building partnership also with suppliers, and many of whom I'm pleased to see here, including Areva, Alstom, Lanorock, Costain, Bouygues, and many others. And I'm pleased to see, regarding the partnership, the French and the British companies working together to deliver this UK nuclear renaissance. And of course, regarding partnership, there are our equity partners who have seen the UK as an attractive place to invest, and who have understood that they can share their expertise, we can share our expertise, and learn from each other. I'm pleased that we have been able to secure these letters of intent, which will now have to be translated in detailed agreement with two Chinese companies. And I signed these two letters during the visit of the Chancellor in the presence of George Osborne in China the first 10 days of October, just before we were able to announce the deal here. And those companies are well known from us. We have been their partners, they have been our partners for 30 years, namely China General Nuclear Corporation and China Nuclear Corporation, CGN and CNNC. Partnerships in all sorts of dimensions, as I have said. And we expect, of course, that others, and there is a short list of interested parties, will be able to take an equity share in the project up to 15%. And therefore, I believe that we will have, with all those partners, a formidable team of strategic and industrial partners sharing our commitments to the UK and sharing our vision regarding what it takes to be a respected, trusted, safe nuclear operator complying with all the regulations in this country. So delivery is our challenge. We, with our partners, need indeed to demonstrate that we are fully ready, fully capable to deliver. And it is not just us that who need to rise to this challenge. It is our whole industry. And I'm pleased to confirm that when Hinkley Point C will be built, it will create an opportunity for the UK supply chain to secure up to 57% of the value of its construction. The prize is global. So I would encourage all of you here today to seize these opportunities. And as Ken Owen will say in a panel following this first speech, we will organize this Monday a huge conference here in London with the supply chain to make sure that the UK companies benefit as much as possible, because local delivery is our priority. As far as we are concerned at EDF Energy, we have in place the right team with people coming from the EDF group, but also coming from outside, and including people which have been involved in very successful large infrastructure projects here in Britain, like the Olympic Park or Terminal 5 at Heathrow. We really wish all together to prove that we can deliver. So what I want to stress, actually, after having used many times the word partnership this morning, is that successfully delivering Hinkley Point C will be a collective endeavor. It is an industrial adventure, and therefore it is a human adventure. We know that our people are our most important asset. And that's why we are so committed, so enthused to continuing our investment in skills. And it is always extremely rewarding to hear, as we heard earlier, these young generation, apprentices, young graduates, being inspired by the opportunities that our industry can offer. And I really believe that our project and others will inspire a generation. Partnerships, it's also what we have achieved between us, our main contractors, and our trade unions. I think it is very important that all together we are aligned to deliver a safe and productive project. And that is not achievable without a full engagement of the people and full acknowledgement of the roles of the people working in our large construction project. And that is why, proudly, we have signed industrial relations agreement, what I call a new social covenant with these partners, so that we will be, in terms of social relationships during the construction, the best in class. I believe strongly in partnerships in all its dimensions. We cannot succeed without the commitment of our people and without the commitment of the employers to these people, that we will care about their safety, their well-being, their career development, their pay and rewards, and they will be fully part of the success of the project. Investing in our people is our priority, because it is through them that we will deliver. It is also through our people of today and the people of tomorrow that we will win this battle of trust I've been referring earlier. I strongly believe that the best advocate of the energy companies are the people working in the company. It's not the chief executive, it's not the leaders, it's the people, the staff. And I was very moved and impressed by the encounter between the Prime Minister, David Cameron, who, when he was at Hinkley Point on the 21st of October, met the staff in Hinkley Point B and told them that in a day where everybody was keen to celebrate the success and say that they had part in it, victory has many fathers and only defeat is orphan. He said the right thing to the people in Hinkley Point B power stations that he met. You have had a critical part in this success. Without your commitment every day, you, the unsung heroes, safely operating your plants, have contributed to make it possible that we announce new plant here in Hinkley in the future. I have strongly believed that. So to conclude, 2013, as I have said, may well prove to be an historic year. And that will depend on our future success, including what we still have to achieve for our final investment decision in 2014. So a considerable responsibility lies on our shoulders. And my last word will be to say how much I believe that we owe a lot to the previous generations who had the vision in the 60s, 70s, 80s in France and in Britain to build the nuclear generation we operate today. We owe them a lot. We should never forget that we are, in the life of companies, in the history of this large industrial project, having a responsibility at a moment in time to be able to take the baton from those who were working before us. And we have also a huge responsibility towards the next generations. Those to whom we also owe a lot, because actually it is the next generation that will vindicate the decision we are taking today in delivering for decades the safe operations of our nuclear power plant. This sense of intergeneration links is for me absolutely critical. And I believe that the Nuclear Industry Association is a perfect example of that, and that everyone in this room has a strong role to play, to be aligned behind these ideas of partnerships so that we can make the most of these human and industrial adventures. Partnerships with policymakers, regulators, investors, customers, local communities, suppliers, trade unions, with our people. The world is watching. So now our challenge is to prove that we can deliver. And I know that together we will. Thank you very much.
Vincent, thank you very much indeed for those inspiring remarks, and I think particularly your reference to the inheritance that we, this generation, have picked up from those who've walked this walk before us, and the responsibilities we owe to future generations, I think, would have struck a chord with everyone in this room. Vincent, you spoke a lot in your remarks about electricity market reform. And you said at one point that EMR works. Could you just set out for us, you think, a little bit more about the role electricity market reform has played in developing Hinkley Point C and creating an attractive environment for investors? Are we doing all that we should be doing, do you think?
Well, for me, the electricity market reform is trying to deliver the best of competition and the best of regulation. And I strongly believe that the future is in combining the best of what competition can deliver and the best of what regulation can deliver. I also strongly believe that we, the energy companies, the energy industry, have to accept that the policymakers, people which have been elected to drive the country, have a say, have a role, have a responsibility. Being in denial of this reality is not helpful. And conversely, I strongly believe that policymakers, government, opposition, all the parties cannot achieve anything without the private sector, without our company. So I think it's a wrong attitude to be in the permanent spats and controversial debates, whilst there is no alternative but to work together. And the electricity market reform, in my view, is about market, is about a reform of the market, it's about a better market, not a lesser market. And I can tell you, because it is the absolute truth, it is one of the tests that Brussels will check. Would Hinkley Point C happen without the contract for difference, without the electricity market reform? The answer is definitely no. It is making a difference, this contract for difference, because it is giving to the investors what they need to put such an amount of money upfront for a project which will be operated for 60 years, which is a certainty about their revenues. It is a deal, it is a partnership. We take the construction risks. We take all the risks which are linked to what is under our control. And at the same time, we cannot make the investment if, in addition to those risks, we were taking the risk of a volatile market. And I think for the customers, it's a good deal, because the risks have a cost. We all know that. And the cost would be in the price. So in reducing the risks, we're reducing the cost. And it is a mistake to talk permanently about subsidies when we talk about contract for difference. It's not a subsidy. It is a tool which stabilizes the price. And we all know how it works. If the power price on the market are lower than the strike price, yes, the investors will have a guaranteed price. But if the power prices on the market are going above the strike price, the money will go back to the customers. So it's not that complicated. The detail of the contract is obviously taking a lot of time, and the negotiation took time simply because a lot was at stake for the government and for us. And because we wanted from the beginning, I can tell you, to have a fair deal and to have a deal. It would have been shorter if any of the parties wanted or were able to accept a failure. Because we were dedicated to the success, it took time. And the government, it will be scrutinized, I'm sure, did a great job to defend the interests of the customers. And I think we did the job that we had to do to attract the investors in this project. So yes, the electricity market reform works, and Hinkley Point C is the first outstanding evidence of it.
Do you think the public understand some of those issues? Because the debate about electricity market reform has often focused on the strike price, the headline figure, and there's been all the sort of commentary that we've all seen about that number. And you've described, I think, electricity market reform very clearly and very well as a balanced deal, where there are long-term interests in play. Do you think that's really understood?
It's early days. I'm not sure that the public was especially focused on the level of the strike price. The public today is focused on the bills. So it's not 92.5. It's, for some of our competitors, 1,500 pounds a year. Some others, 1,400 pounds a year. And for us, 1,300 pounds a year, just. So the public is definitely focused on these short-term issues. And I think he has the instinct that long-term solutions, like the deal we have on Hinkley Point, is globally good. What remains to be done by all of us is this moment of truth about the fact that the current benchmark of the wholesale prices of electricity is not relevant when we talk about what will happen in 10 years after for the next decades. It's not relevant simply because the current wholesale prices, in a sense, benefit of a set of circumstances which will not go on and on. One of them is lower demand as a consequence of the GDP growth having gone down, and we have to expect that will change. The second thing is that power prices of today in the wholesale market do not factor the real costs of the CO2 emissions. And the single biggest reason for the situation of today is that the power prices do not factor neither the 110 billion investments which have to be made to rebuild generation capacity generation in this country to replace what will be closed in the next decade. So all these factors inevitably will lead to higher power prices. And it is very difficult, you're right, for the politicians to explain it, but they will have to. And in the current situation where people rightly so think the price of their bills, the costs of their energy bills is too high, in a sense, they don't realize that it could have been worse, frankly. Because, for instance, if we have limited our tariff increase to 3.9, it's also because the cost of energy, for the first time in many, many years, for us, has not increased. In the explanation of the tariff changes we have made, the component for the energy component of the explanation is almost zero. And if it had been different, for the reasons I've described, the situation would have been even worse. That's why it was urgent to do what we have proposed, and it has been done by the government, to review the other costs. Because when you have all the costs, eco, etc., which are piling up in a context where the energy costs are pretty stable, it's all right. It's not all right, but it is less worse. But let us imagine that we'll have the combination of two factors. So it's really time to do what has been done, which is not to scrap the long-term environmental and social ambitions which are behind the eco program, but just to do the simple thing that any business do. When we have a problem, when at the end of the year we cannot deliver the budget, or when the budget for next year is not okay, we look at our costs. All the companies do that. And I can tell you the costs of our supply activities is permanently under review. It doesn't increase, it increases less than inflation, etc., etc. When we cannot afford, we cannot. And I think UK globally was in a situation where they were this moment where we need to reset things, to review things, and as government does regularly comprehensive spending review, which is normal, as the companies do the same thing, it was time to make a comprehensive cost review of what is going through the energy bills. But that was a short-term fix. It is a short-term fix. I think at the same time, we need to work on the long-term fix, like nuclear.
Vincent, just finally, there's one other thing you referred to quite extensively in your remarks, which was this idea of partnership. And of course, Hinkley Point C is a £16 billion investment program. What do the companies represented in the audience today need to do if they're going to capitalize on that investment?
I think they have already done a lot. I mean, we would not be in a situation to say there is a bit of science behind these numbers. It appears a bit very precise, 57%. Because with the teams of Ken Owen, we have been really analyzing, making a mapping of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 UK suppliers linked to their level of readiness to be part of a nuclear project. And I think this number can be beaten if we go further. So what does it take? It takes what has already been done by many of them to prepare, to invest, to establish joint ventures, partnerships, to recruit the skills they need. And what it takes for the next months and years is more of it. And what is now in place, which was not before, there is a project. There is this magnet there in the middle, which I believe will create the attraction that, because it is a big investment for us, but I recognize a big investment for the suppliers to set up to the standards that the nuclear industry requires, that the regulator requires. It will be also a challenge for the construction companies, civils, electrical, mechanical, to improve the productivity. If the productivity for such a large construction project, it does improve compared to some experience we have had in the past in this country, it will not make it. But it will happen, including through the new covenant that we have with our unions. So there is a lot of things. Most important, it was very visible in the film and in your speech, is to believe in it, to have the enthusiasm to do it. And the Prime Minister met in Hinkley Point C a group of apprentices. And we have seen in the film this guy, 17 years of age. If some days you are a bit downbeat for any sort of reason, move outside of your office and meet the apprentices on the field. And you will meet people which inspire you, because they are dedicated, they are enthused. And they know that our companies are doing what it takes, not only to give them the skills, engineering, electrical, mechanical, nuclear, but also the life skills. Because I strongly believe that you cannot develop a business if you not develop your business. So your people. So there is this kind of moment of enthusiasm that we need to build on. And I think an event as the one today is largely about it.
But Vincent, look, thank you very much indeed for those remarks. And look, the NIA will work with you and all of the companies in this room to make sure we can all capitalize on the tremendous opportunities that are in front of us. And can I finish on a very personal note? It's been a great pleasure to hear you talk and to talk with such enthusiasm yourself. And on behalf of the industry as a whole, I just would like to say this, Vincent. I don't think there's anyone in the United Kingdom who has done more than you to bring us to this moment in time. And we stand on the brink of some historic opportunities for our industry, and in no small part, that has been down to the leadership that you have shown at EDF. So on behalf of the whole industry, I think this would be a good opportunity to thank Vincent for what he's done.
Thank you.